and welcome to Little Learners. Today I wanted to talk about some of the changes that have been happening or have happened to the way Ofsted inspect schools. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that at the end of this video there will be a special announcement, so make sure you stick around to see that. So there have been some changes proposed to the Ofsted framework and the way that Ofsted conduct inspections. These were kind of being trialled, and also they were taking into account teachers' opinions, schools' opinions, head teachers' opinions, educators' opinions. Not all of these opinions were necessarily taken into account in the sense that even though a lot of people disagreed with something, it didn't necessarily mean that Ofsted weren't going to do it. So anyway, let's have a little look at some of the major changes, and also I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the proposed changes that will not be happening, because you may have heard of them and been wondering if they went through or not. So one of the big things I think that a lot of people were worrying about in schools was that Ofsted proposed that inspectors would arrive the afternoon before an inspection would take place so that they could start preparing their work on site for the next day. That, however, meant that schools could have about 2 hours notice before an inspector turns up. Now, whether or not that should be the way that inspections are carried out anyway is a completely different video. But in this case, a lot of head teachers and school staff were very concerned about this because it meant that actually they weren't getting the same preparation time that they normally have. And let's be honest, you need quite a bit of preparation time when Ofsted come in, not because your school isn't performing the way it should be, but because Ofsted do require a lot from you, and it takes some time to get all of that together. However, after this trial and feedback from schools, Ofsted have decided to scrap this, so inspectors will not be turning up at schools the afternoon before an inspection takes place. Instead, the inspector will contact the head teacher of the school the day before the inspection starts, which is usually the day you find out you're going to have an inspection, and have a 90-minute phone call with the head teacher. The idea behind this is so that inspectors can have a more in-depth conversation with head teachers before the inspection actually starts. There were also plans to extend the amount of time inspectors spend in good schools to 2 days from 1 day. As it currently stands, schools that are rated good by Ofsted, at their next inspection they will have a 1-day inspection unless the inspector feels that they're not performing that well and they need to extend that period of time. Ofsted proposed that this would be extended to 2 days, unless the inspector wants it to be longer, and many schools were very opposed to this. One of the main concerns was that for small schools, very small schools, this would cause a lot of extra workload, and many schools felt that the ratio between students and amount of time that the inspector spends in school was kind of off. So Ofsted have decided that this will still go ahead, that schools rated good will still receive a 2-day inspection unless the inspector feels they are underperforming and wants to extend that. However, Ofsted have said that they have taken into account the concerns about small schools, and so any school with 150 pupils or less will receive just a 1-day inspection as standard. Now, I think one of the biggest changes for the Ofsted framework is that they want inspections to be more curriculum focused. As many of you will know, Ofsted inspections are currently very outcome focused. A lot about data and testing and the results that students are getting. Now, Ofsted is saying that they want to move away from this. Of course, I think test results and outcomes are still going to be extremely important, but Ofsted are now saying that they want to look at the curriculum as a whole and the intention behind it, how it is working for the school and how it works across the year and of course across all year groups. This will include how the curriculum progresses throughout the year and exactly how it's taught, and are the children benefiting from that? Now, I think probably one of the biggest reasons, and this is just my opinion, but one of the biggest reasons that this is coming into play now is because many primary schools have to really reduce their curriculum, kind of narrow it down so that they have a lot more time to spend on preparing students for SATs, which of course is not going to be beneficial for the students. And as Ofsted and the Department of Education currently stands, being so outcome driven, this is just what schools have had to do. So possibly this kind of moving away from that and looking at curriculums and the way that the school lays out a curriculum across the year may help with that. So this is all based on the quality of education. There are proposals to phase in this new aspect of inspections and the framework because Ofsted have identified that many schools may want to take another look at their curriculum to make sure that it is the best it can be and it fits with these new requirements, which is, in my opinion, really sad, because that means that to fit in with Ofsted's current requirements, schools have not been able to put as much emphasis on their curriculum and the intention behind their curriculum as a whole. But anyway, that is kind of the biggest change, I think, in the direction that Ofsted are going with their inspections. Something else that I found very interesting with the changes to the inspection framework is that private schools will now receive a grade. So other schools already receive good, outstanding, requires improvement, but at the moment, private schools only have to show that they are meeting the requirements for an independent school. However, from 2020, private schools will be receiving an Ofsted judgment, just like other schools. This follows on from Ofsted having to issue a lot more additional inspections because of the poor standards of many private schools that they have inspected. Not all private schools, of course, just an increasing amount. If you are a teacher at a private school, please let me know in the comments below whether or not you welcome this change, because to me, I was actually quite surprised to find that private schools don't receive a judgment at the moment. I actually wasn't aware of that, so do let me know in the comments below what you think about that. When Ofsted started proposing and drawing up changes to its framework, they talked about how they would be looking for an absence of bullying in schools. This brought up a lot of concerns because many schools, educators, parents were concerned that schools would start trying to hide aspects of bullying from Ofsted just so that they wouldn't fail. And honestly, you can see how schools would feel under pressure to do that. So Ofsted have now decided that instead of looking for an absence of bullying, they are going to look at how bullying is treated in schools, how schools go about dealing with it, and whether or not it is tolerated. They will be looking to see that schools have a very, very high standard when it comes to the way students treat each other, and that they do not allow bullying to go unnoticed. And finally, the last one I'm going to mention is that currently Ofsted have a judgment called Personal Development, Behaviour and Welfare. This is going to be split up into two separate judgments, which will be behaviour and attitudes and personal development, which basically means there will be two judgments, one for behaviour and the way that schools discipline students, and another for the way that schools encourage students to develop and how they look after them. Kind of the pastoral care side of things. So after all that, what do you think about the changes to the way that Ofsted will be inspecting schools? Let me know in the comments below. Right, at the beginning of this video, I said that I was going to have a bit of an announcement. So here it is. I have finally, after a really long time, opened a Patreon account. This means that you have the power to support this channel by becoming a producer. I was very adamant, and I think this is why it took me quite a while to start the account, that I didn't just want to make people a producer of the channel and that's it. I wanted to be offering you more. So you also have the opportunity for early years consultation, which means that you can contact me with your concerns, be it as a parent, as a teacher, as support staff, anything to do with early education and child development, and I can help you with that. Now, I decided to do this because I get a lot of emails and messages from you asking my advice, and I'm always happy to try and help, but recently these have been very, very particular and very in-depth, very personal issues, and unfortunately it's just becoming way too much for me to be able to contact all of you back in the time that I want to. So by becoming a Patreon, you will not only become a producer of the Little Learners channel, you will also be able to receive early years foundation stage consultation from me. So I will link that in the description box below so you can have a little look. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video if you found it helpful. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.